Father and son teaches us about language. We talked about it at the beginning. We talked about how pride is one of the most critical problems of our current generation. Not just in Am Yisrael, but everyone else. People like kavod. They live their entire life for kavod. People's families get destroyed because of kavod. Oh, I don't want to call him. Why? Because he didn't call me. Oh, I'm not going to go to the wedding. Why are you not going to come to the wedding? Because he didn't call me to invite me. He just sent me something in the mail. Oh, I'm not going to do this because he did this. Everybody's constantly wants respect from everybody else. And sometimes you see it in the wrong places, like Bet Knesset. Like we had a conversation, we're not going to mention any names, but we had a conversation with somebody just days ago that had a problem with somebody else in the Bet Knesset. Young boy that has a mental deficiency. Like has a mental deficiency.
מה זה אומר בדיוק?
בעיה עם המוח.
אוקיי.
יש לו בעיה עם המוח. לא, רציני. Like he has a medical deficiency. He has something called Down syndrome.
תסמונת דאון. Okay, בעברית תסמונת.
So the kid has a mental disorder. It's not, they don't think he does. He does, you see it. But he's a great kid. Very cute kid. Unfortunately, somebody has a problem with him. He doesn't like him, it bothers him, the kid's not stable for him, he walks around instead of sitting down. The kid has a mental deficiency. He's obviously not going to be like everybody else. But I personally like the kid, I like him a lot, I think he's great. You spend 5 minutes with him, you love the kid. But anyway, this one guy has a problem with him. So we talked about it, I'm not going to talk about the whole conversation, but the point of what I'm trying to say is that I told him, listen, you sit very close to where his father sits. So obviously you're going to see a lot of him. Because he wants to go to see his father. So what you should do to solve this problem is go to a different seat. Solve the problem. He's not going to come to your seat. No, I'm sitting in the seat 18 years. I'm not going to move. Completely wrong. I'm sitting in this seat 18 years, I'm not going to change. He has to change. So you see what we're talking about here? He expects someone with the mental deficiency to change before he lowers his pride and changes a seat from one seat to one that's 10 meters away. That's how bad kavod is. That's how bad pride can get to. And we talked about the Kohanim. This is the first time somebody told him the truth. Everybody else always appeases him, and I don't necessarily like to please people just because I like. So the point I'm trying to make here is that people's pride is very important to them. They live their entire life trying to get people to respect them. And one of the things that people do is they talk in a certain way, and they expect people to just comply with whatever they say. Meaning they could talk to you in whatever way they want, but you can't talk to them in the way they want. And you can see that in a lot of companies. Any boss that runs a company, something happens, he starts yelling at the people. Not every boss, but a lot of bosses do. Whether it's store owner, company owner, somebody screwed up, they mailed something to the wrong address, they made a bad sale, something happened, there's a mistake that's made, it's a human error. Immediately you see somebody starts yelling. Yelling, screaming at the guy, embarrassing him or the girl, embarrassing them, which is a different problem with Hashem, but that's a different story. And yelling. But if the guy starts yelling back, if the employee starts yelling back, you're fired. If you don't yell back, just sit there and take it. Okay, it's over. He finished yelling, you go back to your job, and that's it. But if you yell back, or you even answer in a certain way that he doesn't like, you're fired. But as long as you don't answer, you keep your job, just continue listening to my yelling forever. What's the source of that problem? Pride. One person made a mistake that's a human error. People make mistakes. If you run a business for 5 minutes, people are going to make mistakes. We ran a very big company, we know people make mistakes. That's a problem. It happens. Whether you're going to survive or not, as a business, is going to be determined on how you deal with your mistakes, because the mistakes will happen. Mistakes will happen in every business. How you deal with those mistakes will determine if you survive or not. So if you're one of those bosses that yells at people and complains and yells and complains and yells and embarrasses them and everything else, I guarantee from experience and from knowledge that I have, you are guaranteed to fail. Guaranteed, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years.
Family, it's
eventually,
the same.
you will always fail.
If your
in
wife
family, fail. Everything in general.
crash the car.
Someone that has that type of attitude is guaranteed to fail in whatever they're doing. Because eventually the time will come where the people around you will be repulsed by you, meaning they'll be disgusted by you, and they will not want to take it anymore. And no one will want to be around you, including the customers. So whether you succeed or fail is based on whether you decide to change or not. So you say, okay, I'm not going to yell. Fine. But I can talk to them in a certain way. What's the big deal if I say something, if I curse them, but I don't yell it? So there's a nice story about how speech, how talking, just the way you talk, something, same words, different tone, change everything. There's a story about a father and a son. A father sends his son to school, and he says, son, whatever you want, just write me a letter, and I don't know how to read, but I'll have the neighbor read it for me, and I'll send it to you. Thank you, Abba. I appreciate it. I love you, Abba. It's my favorite son. I love my son. Great. He sends the son away. The son, after a couple of months, he writes a letter, sends it to the guy, sends it to his father. The father doesn't know how to read, so he gives it to his neighbor. Neighbor says, oh, Abba, I need money. Please send me $200. He goes, my son. I love my son. Yeah, of course, I'm going to send him $200. He takes money out of his pocket. He tells his neighbor, please send it for me. Send it to him. Another couple of months pass. He says, Abba, I need pants. He sends a letter. So the neighbor that day, she's not in a good mood. He goes, you again? He goes, yeah, can you read this? It's only a short letter. Can you read it for me? He goes, Abba, I need pants. He goes, my son talking to me like this? What happened to him? No, I'm not going to answer him. So a month passes. The kid didn't get the pants. He sends it to the father. Again, another letter. Abba, I need pants. The father comes. He goes, my son, can you please read it for me? The guy's also, again, in a bad mood. He goes, Abba, I need pants. Go. He goes, my son has developed an attitude. They're ruining him over there in his school. Another month passes. Send him the letter, same letter. This time, the neighbor's in a good mood. He goes, oh, hey, buddy, how are you? He goes, yeah, I have a letter again for my son. I don't know what's wrong with him, but he sent me this letter. He goes, no, he says he just needs pants. He goes, there goes my boy. I love my son. Oh, of course I'm going to send him pants.